You're listening to the Conscious Debriefing Show podcast on Anchor FM.
Alrighty. Welcome back to another edition of Conscious Debriefing podcast. Sunday evening, 6 o'clock the evening, and I'm doing a podcast by myself. Okay, the reason why I'm doing a podcast myself, the initial podcast that I wanted to have this week is with a special guest. I will announce her name next week when I just confirm with her. She told me she just wanted some more time to do some research on the topic, and the topic is going to be about education that defines us. It should be an interesting topic, that something that I wanted to discuss for a long time. And yeah, this is probably what's leading to this podcast that I'm doing tonight on white privilege. Yes, I know there's lots of YouTube videos out there on white privilege. There's various definitions. Last week Sunday, Ronaldo did a podcast with I think it was Gary Kukumu and Conscious Carrickle, and they had a heated debate about the subject. But this podcast, I just want to give my opinion, and it's not to say that I'm right or wrong. Every one of us, remember, we are all individuals. And we share different values and opinions on matters of the heart, and this is a real matter of the heart, and it's a touchy subject for most South Africans in this country. So yeah, let's get into the podcast quickly. Okay, so there's this one video that I want to play quickly. It's a video that's been it was on Facebook this week. It got a lot of attention. Got something like over 1,000, maybe 2,000 comments. It's a lady that lives in America, and she wrote a poem on white privilege. But yeah, let's quickly watch this video together, and then I'll quickly discuss about it afterwards.
We learned your French. Okay. We learned your English, we learned your Spanish, we learned your Dutch, your Portuguese, your German. You learned our nothing, you called us stupid. That's white privilege. And I'm sure it probably hurts for you to hear those two words, kind of like gunshots and explosions from those commissioned to protect you, with whisking past your ears. What is white privilege? It is the only 5 decades of legal acknowledgement expected to correct 400 years of white transgression. It's crack versus cocaine. Blacks receiving almost 20% longer sentences for the same exact offenses. Like, for instance, a black man without a record is less likely to get a job than a white felon. Or maybe it's because we're lazy and we don't work hard enough. Like, what the fuck? 400 years in the same field literally is an incredible resume builder. It is Katrina answering the government's prayers of eugenics, Dick Cheney going fishing the next day, Condoleezza on a shopping spree, Bush in San Diego. But Kanye is the one you call crazy, because, like, it only took the USA 2 days to get aid to Asia, but 5 for FEMA to get to Canal Street and Esplanade. It is the one black kid who beat the shit out of the odds, but only thanks to Sandra Bullock, Michelle Pfeiffer, and the White Shadow. So now we all can make it. It is the only time thousands of white people are cheering for the black kid to win. It is in the stadium. It is you looking at me crazy if I told you to go back to Europe, even though we didn't have a say. It is you all of a sudden having a problem with immigration, like this isn't even your nation. How the hell do you discover some shit that wasn't even missing to begin with? You Columbus our traditions. Had white girls twerking in high definition with multicolored hair and purple nails, but it was ghetto when we did it. Oh, I make you uncomfortable. Try a cramped slave ship. But wait. Slavery is over now. It's just called the prison system, because like, you're not racist because you don't use the N-word, but y'all use niggas every day. What is white privilege? It is the acceptance of bombs over Baghdad, but not over Boston. It is European history being taught as a major and African as an elective. It is learning about my people only 28 days like I'm not black every fucking second as every white boy. With the fuck my braids out, not because I'm pretty, but because I'm pretty for a black girl. It is people thinking that Africa is one nation. It is the waving of the Confederate flag like you didn't lose the battle and then telling us to get over slavery. It is people saying that black people destroyed neighborhoods but forgetting that white people have destroyed continents. It is every time I bring up my plight, some white man has to tell me that I'm crazy but is kind enough to praise my English or say that we are all given the same opportunities, even though he has a family history of wealth and I don't even know my family history at all. Is the justification of police brutality. Like, what did that person do? I'm sure it doesn't hurt as much when the victim doesn't look like you. It is people thinking that affirmative action is an unfair advantage instead of keeping the qualified from being unfairly disadvantaged or throwing out a qualified applicant because their name sounded too African American. As Newports imported into black communities, but black boys exported for weed as big plastic asses that are called fat when we naturally have them. It is an Australian woman whose new classic of rap music is everyone who hears this poem dismisses all this truth I just spit as reverse racism. That is white privilege. Thank you.
Alright, and that was the video. What can we say about that video? Quite a mouthful there. Look, she is practicing her freedom of speech. In my opinion, there's a lot of hate speech there. And I tell you why. Because of, as being a white man, I suppose it does make you feel uncomfortable. It's only normal. It's natural for a white man to feel like it. For all, you know, all the black people that watch that and listen to that, of course they would agree to it, because, you know, let's face it, liberation in this country has come a long way, and we have different political views, different political spectrums. We got your left and your right wing, your centrism, and everyone's got their own opinions. So I don't know what to make on that. I want to say it's right and I want to say it's wrong at the same time. So does that make me a centrism? I don't know. I can't say. And yes, I know a lot of you listeners out there probably listen and say, yo, Jason, you're probably just too scared to speak your mind, because then you're going to be scared we're going to label you. And yeah, maybe to a certain extent, I'm too scared that you are going to label me, because there's thousands of us that make these podcasts and there's thousands of us that give our opinions. And when we just say the one wrong small word, we get labeled. Then we are the biggest this and the biggest this under the sun. And yeah, okay. But let's go into the full depth of what white privilege means. And so privilege has inherent advantages possessed by a white person, take note of what I said there, by a white person on the basis of their race in a society categorized by racial inequality and injustices. The two definitions quickly. Let's look at it quickly. Injustice, lack of fairness or justice. Now, yes, we can all relate to that. I can relate to that. In the workplace, we get it a lot. And this is not just something that was on black and white. It was also white on white, and it was also Indian on Indian and colored on colored. I've experienced a lot of unfairness in my workplace. Inequality, difference in size, lack of equality, which is the state of being equal. Now, when I became a store manager in a certain retail group, I'm not going to name its name, but yeah, I did work for a retail group and I was a store manager. I need to discover one time that my salary wasn't the same as other branch managers. Did I get offended from it? Yeah, I suppose to a little bit to the extent, but then I realized, how can I get offended from it? Why must I get offended for a salary that's smaller than other branch managers that's got bigger? Then I take into consideration that at that time in my life, I was 29 years old. I was the youngest store manager in the group, compared to the other branch managers that had 5 to 10 years more experience than me in retail as such. And a lot of them have been branch managers for 10 or 15 years plus. So obviously they're going to get a bigger salary. But that's just me, how I felt about it. The youth of today, when you try to explain to them that your salary is that, they say it's unfair. I mean, there should be equality. And yeah, again, is it right? Is it wrong? To my knowledge, when I was at that age, 29, I didn't know much about politics. I didn't know much about right wing and left wing like I do now, like I've learned now today. So was it fair? I think to my knowledge, it was fair because I was still new in the game. Yes, obviously, as the years went by and I became more experienced, I did get an increase. And I got an increase to, because I gained experience. The store that I worked in, I took over at a loss. It ran at a 1.7 million loss. And that year, I came in there and I put in my discipline procedures, the rules, the procedures of the company. And it all just gelled. And the following year, I made a profit of 299,000 290,000 profit. Not much, but after I left and I went to go open a new store from the ground. That following year, that store made a 2.5 million profit. And I'll never forget this. One of my sales managers, his name was Percy, he phoned me like 2 years later. And I'm long gone from that store. And he phoned me and he says, Mr. Jason, I just want to phone you to say thank you. And I say, why? Why, Percy? Because I just received a 30,000 Rand incentive. So I said, okay, but now I'm confused. Why are you phoning me? He says, Mr. Jason, you got to understand your procedures, your work ethics, the morality that you put into the work itself, into the shop itself, is still ongoing. The manager that took over just kept on. He just kept on driving that ship. Meaning that, yeah, it made me feel proud at that particular moment that one of my ex-managers phoned me to thank me about his incentive that he got. So, yeah, look, what's this got to do with privilege? So what's it got to do with privilege, I asked? Absolutely nothing, because coming back to the store that I worked in, Percy was a supervisor. He wasn't even a manager at that time. And that was one of the things that I wanted to do when I was a store manager. I wanted to promote people. I wanted to take people of color and promote them. And so I approached my human resources manager and I said, this guy Percy, I want to make him a training manager. She says, Jason, you sure? Now that already alone, just saying, are you sure, is like not very convincing. So I said, no, I'm sure. I want to make this guy a training manager. So we took him on board. The supermarket group, and most supermarket groups, they got like a 2-year period where you train them up in the various departments and you give them books to learn and that, and voila, would you know it, within a year, actually, not even 2 years, they didn't even complete his 2 years trainee manager program. He became a manager. He became my sales manager, my floor manager. We are training him how to do the orders and how to merchandise and pack the shelves and pack according to rate of sale and things like that. I've lost contact with him. I hope he is a store manager today, which there is other managers that when I came to Van der Belpark, I promoted the same. He was a supervisor and I made him a training manager. But anyway, back to Percy. And yeah, Percy was the one that phoned me with the 30,000 incentive that he got. So the thing is, I took my privilege and I passed it down. I passed it down to Percy. That's what I did. I helped him. I educated him. I showed him the ropes. And today he's probably a very successful man. So same with another manager, black guy, Zachariah, that in the supermarket that I worked in Van der Belpark. Same thing. Trained him up, and a few years later I saw him in a mall, a shopping mall. I was walking around and I looked at Zachariah and I said, wow, how are you, man? And we were chatting and you know, we walked outside and I walked to his car and he pressed the remote and voila, there goes the remote onto a SLK, Mercedes-Benz SLK 2-door. I'm like, is this you? Is this you, Zechariah? And he goes, yes, this is me. And again, at that moment, I felt very proud because I knew because of what I did to him and how I gave him that benchmark and I shoved him in that right direction to go up in life. He's a store manager. He was a store manager at that time for like a maintenance shop that sells hardware. I can't think of the name now because I'm gonna go here. So anyway, He became a manager. He's got a car and he's got a stomach. He's got a stomach. And I asked him, what's that stomach from? He said, from the good life, eh? And then we spoke and he said, you know what, Jason, at the end of the day, I want to thank you. It's because of you. And yes, it's because of my white privilege that I got, my knowledge of what I've got. I've passed it down to Zechariah and Percy. And he's not the only one. There's about another 5 black people out there that are promote managers. And I'm sure they're all successful today. But I want to quickly go more into white privilege, why we have this thing called white privilege. And let's take quickly 2 people. Let's take the one guy's a white guy and the one guy's a black guy. Okay. Now, the guy that's white, he was probably born in a suburb, living in a house in a neighborhood. He grew up going to creche. From creche, he went to primary school. And, you know, fully dressed. He's got school shoes on. He's got a nice jersey on. He's warm in winter and that. He grows up, goes to high school. He starts playing rugby. I'm just taking an example for just a normal average guy. He plays rugby. He's good at his rugby. He's good in his education. And his parents have got money, and he goes to college. He learns a degree, a certain degree, maybe whether in law, doctors, whatever he studies, and he becomes successful. So yeah, that is what most people class white privilege. Whereas if the black guy, he grew up in a township, he probably grew up in a rural area, 10 to 1, he didn't have a father, and even if he did have a father, the father probably had a small job as a laborer, where he was getting probably paid peanuts. But nonetheless, education in this country is compulsory, and if you cannot afford one, a bursary will be given to you. So 10 to 1, he probably got a bursary, a school bursary, went to primary school, went to high school, but there wasn't much sports. There wasn't sports for him. He didn't participate in sports. And after high school, what happened? Did he further high school? Did he finish his matric? Some do and some don't. But then when he grows up, his parents don't have that money for him to send him to college. So he takes the odd job, and the odd job pays peanuts. Now I know when I left school, my parents, there wasn't money for me to go to college. I didn't go to college, so my first job when I left school was that of a petrol attendant. Yes, you heard right, that of a petrol attendant. And I've had various jobs. I used to build yachts. I worked at a nursery, working with flowers and plants. I worked as a panel beater. I even worked in a backyard mechanic as a mechanic. It was only until a few years later, after I left school, that I come to Joburg, that I got a job with my brother-in-law. But as a shelf packer, and I worked my way up. Yes, the manager that was there in that supermarket promoted me, and he put me in the deep end. And I looked at him and I said, you know, I don't know how to do this. I've never received the proper education for it. I know nothing about accounting and that. So straightforward already at that age, at a young age, I was 20 years old. I knew that I'm not qualified for this job, but yet I got it. And I'm going to say this, I agree, it's probably because of my whiteness that I got the job. And people out there, please, if you're going to label me now already, then switch off this podcast right now, because this is me. I'm speaking here from the bottom of my heart. And that was the time when I realized that, how can I be so lucky to get this job? I want to repay the favor. I want to repay the favor. And that particular grocery store, it was a franchise grocery store. I couldn't really repay the favor. It was only when I went to corporate that I could repay the favor. And I did. And I'm still doing it. And I'm still doing it in the security industry that I am. The guards that I train, I teach my guards morality. I teach them ethics. I teach them manners. I teach them discipline, more importantly. And I'll never forget this one guard when she left, and she got another job, and she got promoted as a supervisor, and she got a nice, healthy increase. Again, she phoned me. Princess was her name. She phoned me and she said, Jason, I just want to say thank you again. And I said, for what, Princess? I got this job because of the top managers saw how I can discipline people and be strict and do time shifts and stuff like that. You know, she said it. Again, I felt humbled. I felt so humbled because I knew I did something right again. It's an awesome feeling. It really is an awesome feeling. And my message here to all of you out there that's listening to this podcast: white privilege can be seen as a gift, and it can be seen as a curse. It all depends on you as an individual, how you interpret that gift, okay, and pass it on and how people, because let's face it, guys, I mean, BEE and AAA has been implemented 25 years ago, and we can already see, I saw the stats not so long ago that there's about 4 million black people that are homeowners, and about 700,000 whites are homeowners. I didn't get the stats on colors and Indians and that, but one has to also take into consideration about the demographics of this country, and I'm going to talk a little bit later, not now. But yeah, you see where I'm going, guys. Take your privilege and use it to your advantage. Help people out there. Just quickly, some things that I want to point out on what you read all over on the internet. I mean, there's many articles on AA, you know, affirmative action. And, you know, black and white people who have very realistic ideas of South Africa, you know, there is problems and how do we solve it, and is there different categories? What are the categories that separate us between white and black people to understand what AA actually is? And those are, and there's just a few of them that I want to read you quickly to you. That white people will talk about black advancement, while blacks will talk about black empowerment. White people will feel that black people are a danger, you know, to their positions, while black people will feel endangered to the white working environment. Whites want to orientate black people into, you know, the way of things are done today, the western side of the business, while black people want an Africanized state of affairs, you know, Africanized, you know, in African or certain aspects are saying. Whites want black people to be developed into positions when they are capable of doing the job, while many black people want positions now, you know, they want power now. Doesn't really matter regardless of whether they are ready or not, that they want into it. Whites will talk about development of black people into, you know, those of management positions, and black people will talk about quotas. Whites talk about reconciliation, while many blacks will talk about retribution. Whites talk about maintaining your standards, your procedures, while black people will talk about, you know, changing those standards and procedures. Whites will say and talk about power sharing, you know. Black people will talk about control. Whites rate blacks as able when they have mastered the European way of doing things, while blacks want to be rated as able without having to confirm the way of doing Europe doing things in the European ways. Obviously, in everything that I read there now to you is all about fear. White people have seemed to develop this fear that somebody's going to come in and take your job. You've been working for a company for 10 to 15 years and now your job is going to be replaced. And we experienced this in the last 25 years. We experienced this, the AA and the BEE. How to overcome it, how to overcome that fear, I don't know, because let's face it, people have been coming into certain positions and nepotism has been there, favoritism has been there. You get employed and you can't do the job. Look, it's another thing to say, I can go to college and I can get a degree, but putting someone then of that college degree into a position, and I'm talking about a real high position, I'm talking about CEO positions and other management positions, and you just do not have that qualification. Yes, you've got the degree, I understand that 100%, I'm with you for that. You've got the knowledge, the theory, you've got the theory. It's coming down to the practical side of the business. Sorry. Can you do the job? Can you perform the job as such? There's this confusion how we must feel about it. I mean, how do I feel about it? I feel these things have happened. It has happened. We have seen it happen. We have seen people coming into the workplace with not really much work experience, and I reckon the last 25 years are consultants have been on the rise. I know of Eskom engineers that's left the company, and 2 years later they get a phone call back saying that they must come back, but we're not going to employ you in your position. We would like to employ you as a consultant. Obviously this guy that I know, I mean, he said, okay, cool, on one condition. I'm going to come back on my terms. I'm going to work flexi hours, and I want X and X salary. Of course, it remains to be unseen if the money that gets paid for his salary goes onto the books as staff payments, or does it go under something else on the ledger. I don't know, that's just speculation. But it frustrates me to know that certain individuals get jobs through nepotism, through favoritism, and they can't perform the job. And then 2 years later, 3 years later, you got to call consultants to come and perform the job. But coming back to that person with a college degree in that, and he gets the job, and I spoke now about consultation. Could he do the job? I asked previously, and I reckon yes. I mean, consultants are there to help you, provided that the guy that's employed in the position actually takes in the knowledge of the consultant and says, yay, okay, cool, this is how the job needs to be done. Take it into consideration and make it work for you. Become a successful manager. Of course, I mean, I was in that same position. I got thrown in the deep end, and I had to climb my way to the top. Now, I think the same can happen to everyone who comes out of college and gets pushed into the CEO, provided that he just gets that right help. And I think this is the thing with most people, and especially with black people. I've seen a lot of people, they come and apply for a job, they hand in the CV, and then you ask them what the previous experience you got, and they said none, but I'm willing to learn. Okay, and now in my work environment, that's exactly what I do. I take a person on and I say, look, have you done this work before? Have you got experience in it? In the security? And he says no, but he's got the grade for it, and he has registered himself on the Pasira board. I said, no problem, training is provided. But if you cannot follow my rules and procedures, and if you can't follow the training that was provided, and you don't use it to your advantage to further yourself, then what are you doing? Then why are you still employed? Then of course I'm going to have to let you go. I'm going to have to obviously follow the procedures, give you a written warning, give you a second written warning, third, and then obviously go for a hearing. Obviously that's the normal procedure that any company has to follow. Break those procedures, CCMA then calls you up and that. But there's something else going on with people that get employed in high positions, and I think it's corruption. Corruption seems to set itself in, it gets its way in, and you get blackmailed. You obviously did something wrong. I'm just speculating. I know a lot of you out there will probably go just bullshit, but a lot of us that know exactly what I'm talking about seem to understand how corruption has played a major influence on the workplace, and how people all of a sudden get the golden handshake. Where did this golden handshake comes in? He's left the company with a couple of million. So yeah, work experience is important. If you have no work experience, training can be provided. I agree with that 100%, because I am in that field. I do train the people, but just don't mess it up, man. Just don't mess it up. Do the right thing, man. And that's the next question or topic that I want to talk about. Why is there so many SOEs and businesses in the private sector closing down? And this was a tweet that came out from, man's not Barry Roo. Okay, so it's Barry Roo. So, you right here, IBM is retrenching. Eskom is retrenching. Distal is retrenching. My Way is retrenching. Nedbank is retrenching. MultiChoice, wow, okay. There has been an article released on the net about MultiChoice. 2,000 people, telesales and various departments are going to be retrenched. And we all know the reason why for that, because of, what's the high package, the premier package is losing value, heavy, quick and fast. So Star is retrenching, Standard Bank is retrenching, 104 branches we know there is going to close soon. Continental Tires is retrenching, Murray & Roberts is retrenching, everyone is retrenching. Again, there's a lot of red tape here involved. You can't speculate too much about that, because if you do, again, you get labeled this and you're saying, Jason, you are talking absolutely rubbish. But come on, guys. Why is our president on his State of the Nation address saying that we have to redress these problems and we're facing these problems because apartheid is there? Yes, you know what? Okay, cool. To a certain degree, I have to understand why politicians keep using that, because again, I'm going to speak out of my turn, and I'm going to say it. Apartheid, the government, the MP government, when they left, how many people did pull out their shares? How many people did pull out the money? In fact, the country was broke. Guys, come on. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. The country was broke. So, a lot of SOEs at the time, and I'm talking about mines. I'm talking about this particular Escort plant that's here in Vanderbijl Park. It employed, at the time, 34,000 people. Now it's only employing probably 3,000 to 4,000 people. Why? Because most businesses and companies out there are buying steel from China. Our manufacturing has gone down. We're not manufacturing goods at enough rate. I mean, hence our minus 3.2% in the GDP. Where are we going? Where are we going, guys? Our economy is so flat broke. And then we've got ACE that wants to centralize. Well, yeah, if I'm using the right words, he wants to centralize the Reserve Bank. What's going to happen here, guys? Money's going to be printed. People are going to start printing money, and then boom, we're going to have a Venezuela on our doorstep here, because that money is going to have absolutely no worth. I've seen photos, and I've mentioned it in my previous podcast. And you see the money just lying in the streets like it's dirt, but if you zoom into the photo, you see but it's actually money on the streets. But the differences, there's the huge difference here is between Eurocentric and Africanized. That is the difference here. And again, now I'm coming to ABSA. When ABSA came with their advert campaigns, explaining what did they say? When ABSA Bank has already made adverts explaining this, in their Africanity, there's a way of doing things that's unique to our continent. Again, let me rephrase it. There's a way of doing things that's unique to our continent. I think Ronaldo made a video about this, and I'll put it in the link, and then you can watch the video for yourself and judge on what he said. But you have to agree on what he said. I mean, come on, guys. I just read it in the book there, but a lot of people are saying that they want freedom of expression. They want freedom of speech. They want a democracy. They want equal rights. And it was like that, you know. I've mentioned in my previous podcast as well, in 1995, when we had the World Cup, it was an awesome time to live in. It really was an awesome time to live in. For the first time, people of color could live in harmony and be humbled with what they had at that time. The laws of apartheid was gone. There was freedom to do what we wanted to do. It was awesome. At the end of the day, this superior versus the inferior, a lot of us are still showing that we are superior and that we expect people below us to be the inferior to the superior. That mindset needs to change. Really, it really needs to change. I mean, in my workplace that I do not under any circumstances show that I'm superior and that I'm not better because of my privilege. All that I want in return from my workers that's underneath me is respect. I want respect to know that my rank is higher than them, and that I am there to manage the workplace, to manage the job, to make sure that the rules and procedures are carried out. I'm not there to show that I'm better. Okay? And I've got that support. I really do. My people that work for me, I really respect them a lot, and they respect me because I do not take sides. I do not take favoritism, and I do not practice racism. I mean, if there's any sign of racism, I get offended, and I stop them right there in their tracks, and I say, listen guys, no, you're going out too far now. You can't keep saying, is it because I'm black? I hate it with a passion. I always tell my workers to come to my office and tell me exactly, this and this has happened. I'm not happy about it. What can we do about it? You say, you know what, in parade tomorrow morning, we will have a quick meeting, a quick discussion about it. We'll come to a conclusion and we'll have a vote. We'll have a vote on it. 9 out of 10 times it works in my favor. We discuss something, a staff member will tell me something, he has an idea, we vote on it, bam, it works, 100%, everyone's happy. So yeah, this thing of superiorness, it has to stop, guys. And it's at this moment in time, a lot of us have stopped it. We are being equal with people, but there's still a lot of us out there that are still showing that superiorness. You need to drive yourself away, change your mindset, and try and look for solutions rather than being the dictator or the autocrat that so many of you out there are. Come on, that autocrat shit is for ex-KGB stuff, man. If you get what I'm saying, man. Just be diverse, man. You know what I mean? There's so many words in that dictionary that we don't even know its full potential meaning. But I think you get my message. The IRR, Institution Race Relations, they released a hope report recently, and if you can see it on the screen, I just want to quickly talk about it. This first one here, this survey that they did, the top priority for government from lists supplied by the interviewer: creating more jobs, total is 26%, blacks voted 27%, 32% colored, 19% white, 90% Indian, 30% white. Fighting corruption, 14% total, 10% black, 90% colored, 31% Indian, and 34% white. Now, that's an interesting one, that 10% black fighting for corruption. Okay. Improving education, 11% total, 10% black, 9% colored, 19% Indian, and 18% white. You get the idea. You can see the rest. You can just pause it and look at it. For those that are listening, and if you want to view this, I'm going to upload it at the same time as when I release this podcast on my Anchor FM channel. I'm not going to go through it there, it's a bit much, but I want to go to the next one quickly. The next one is race relations since 1994. Has it improved? 50% say yeah. 64% is black, 26% is colored, 37% Indian, 39% white. Okay, stayed the same. 30% black, 23% colored, 90% Indian, and 10% white. Become worse. This is obvious when you look at it. Blacks are saying 20%. It's become worse. 51% colored has said yeah, it's worse. 44% Indian and 47% white. Okay, let's go to the next one. Table 3. How best to improve people's lives? More jobs and better education. 57% for black. 65 color, 62 Indian, 72% white. Better delivery of service such as electricity, water, sanitation. 24% white, 31% color, 25 Indian, 24% white. Pretty much the same. More black economic empowerment, BEE, and affirmative action in employment, AA policies. 9% black, 0% color, 12% Indian, and 0% white. Okay. Let's go to the next one. Table 4. Why do you think who do you think should be appointed to jobs in South Africa? And the questions or the replies are only blacks for a long time ahead. 30% black, 0% color, 6% Indian, 1% white. Only blacks till demographically representative. 9% black, 1% colored, 0 Indian, and 0% white. Appointments should be made on merit with special training for the disadvantaged. 55% black, 67 colored, 69% Indian, 68 white. All appointments should be made on merit alone without such training. 20% black, 31% colored, 25 and 28. Okay, let me go into, there's a lot here. Okay. Would you prefer your child's teachers to be the same race as you? 80% say black, 5% colored, 6% Indian, 7% white. I think I'm going to skip. I'm just going to go to there. You can see that one. Just pause it. Okay. Go into that one there and you can just pause and read it. And the last one is, which better education and more jobs inequality? Well, sorry, let me rephrase it. With better education and more jobs, inequality between races will disappear. Agree and disagree was the two answers. Okay, and 74% they say agree, blacks agree, 84% colors agree, 75% agree, 86% agree. Disagree is 24% black, 50% colored, 25% Indian, and 12% white. Interesting. You know, I'll leave the link. Go through the survey itself. It's a very interesting one. It's amazing to see how the percentages are there are very, very small in certain people of color there, and it just makes you think. Makes you think that everything that's going on in this country at the moment with the propaganda and the hate speech and the labeling, it just makes you wonder. I can only think that there's trolls out there, and I call them the internet or social media warriors out there that will go out there onto social media, Twitter, Facebook, and they will spread all this hate speech and to confuse you. I always try and tell people, you know, don't really entertain this. I mean, a troll will come on and put on his hate speech comment and then look for you, you know, the angry one, makes a screenshot, he photo screens your comment, and then he puts on these web pages. You see, guys, this is exactly what I was talking about. You see, these people, this and this and this and that, can't do this, and it's stupid, man. It's really stupid. The population, I want to end off with the population. Here you can see, from 1910, the population on the black people was 3.9 million. White people was what? Only 1.2 million. I can't see now the other colors there, but you can see up until 2015 that this graph was done, white people are 4.8 million and black people are 45 million. There's a reason why I'm putting this on here and telling you guys this. I approached a lot of my guards some time ago, probably about a couple of months ago, and I asked them, how many whites do you think is in this country? And a lot of them said 20 million, 30 million. And I said, blacks, how many blacks in this country? I say 40 million. And I say, well, guys, hold on quickly. You're forgetting about the other Indians and coloreds. How much do they make of the population? Coloreds also make about 4 million. So I said, the figures that you give me already is way over 50 million already, because we're only 57 million people in this country. We're not foreigners. In the last census report, they said it was about 2 million. But I reckon it could be about 5 million now. when I tell my workers that the population gap, the 45 million blacks and the 4.8 million, okay, well, I think it's reduced now because there was recent reports of saying that 200 or even 2,000, I don't know the exact figure of how many white people are leaving this country at the moment. So it could be lower. We haven't had a census report since 2011. Is to ask them, guys, do you really think that we're on the right path, job-wise, in that, with the amount of businesses that are closing down? Who's to blame for this? A lot of them can't just, I can't get an exact answer from my workers in it. But in itself, you know, just, I'm not going to speak too much about it. Your imagination can go wild on it. You can think for yourself what's the differences of the figures. Okay. Quick and simple solution for everything that is happening in this country at the moment with the hate speech and us white people being labeled with white privilege, is to create jobs. That's the quickest solution, you guys. Create jobs, and in 10 years' time, this problem will dissolve itself. But then you got to ask yourself, what about the other countries in Africa? Are they going to follow? Are they going to do the same? Or do they also want to be what everybody else wants to be, Africanized? What is Africanized? I don't know. I haven't really gone into it. I haven't really done much research. The words itself is probably self-explanatory. But yeah, I don't want to talk too much about that. Maybe I can leave that question for another podcast. Maybe what if I bring someone on and then I can ask him what does the word Africanized means to him. But we know from past experience that we have suffered. We have really suffered, and we have been oppressed. Early this week too, there was on one of the groups that I'm on, they put photos on of Afrikaners that were also in concentration camps. And again, do people actually acknowledge that? Do people acknowledge that concentration camps for Afrikaners, women and children were there? No, because of certain liberation movements that they do not allow that. Because if you allow that, it's like one of the politicians from many years ago said, we liberate now and we educate later. And that message in itself just says a lot to me, like, as of liberate now, we cross this bridge and then we educate later. But you know, yeah, we are 25 years later into democracy. Our pass rate at the moment is 30%. And just like I read in that book from Theo Wingrove, pass, just to pass the student for the pass sake of it. I don't know. Guys, I don't know. I don't know what to say further. I think that's it. I think that's a wrap. I'm going to have my podcast next week, Monday, with my guest on, and we're going to speak about education. Maybe I can, in that podcast, maybe I can go a bit in depth more, because I want to speak about Greek education and Roman education and what it has meant for us and what it has done to us as a society and how it has molded us. And yeah, a lot of you out there know exactly what I'm talking about. But there is others out there. I don't even know who's going to listen to this podcast, because a lot of people just do not have that internet access, like I've been talking about. The stuff that we see on TV is not the information that the country should get. Instead, we get a lot of promises. This would happen and we need to do this. And the latest is we need to build a city now. That's the latest that our politicians are saying. We need to build a city. Great stuff. We need to build a city. How much millions and billions is going to be spent on the city, where that billions can be spent on special reform programs in the rural areas? And again, yeah, I don't want to spoil my next podcast. This is the type of stuff that I want to talk about, education, of the stuff that can be implemented in townships and rural areas for future development. I mean, after all, I'm worried about our future. I'm worried where we're gonna go. Do we have is my son's future, for argument's sake, does he have a future? I don't know. And it's this thing of labeling each other as nonsense. Like I've just mentioned previously, I've promoted people with my privilege. I've used my privilege. And the message here to everyone is, so can you. Okay, that's it. My podcast is available on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Pocket Cast. I will load this onto my YouTube channel as well. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm asking. Please subscribe to the radio channel, because you can download these radio podcasts and put it onto a memory stick and play it in your car. You can play it on your cell phone, plug the cell phone into your car. So when you're driving to work, you can listen to me jibber jabber. Guys, thank you very much. You guys have been awesome. Thank you for listening. And I will see you next week. Cheers.